Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and today we're going to be giving you our team of the tournament for the 2021 Carling Currie Cup. Not maybe the best Currie Cup in the world in terms of a competition which saw all the games being played, in terms of competition which saw some pretty woeful defending, some very nice tries being scored, some very exciting rugby being played at times, but a Currie Cup which I think we'll put down as being quite frustrating, because I think it's when it started off all those months ago, the first couple of weeks were very exciting. We were seeing upsets, we were seeing some big scores, but some decent rugby being played. And the longer it sort of went on, the more games that got interrupted because of British and Irish Lions series, because of COVID outbreaks, because of looting and stuff like that. The more the sort of tournament started to disintegrate a little bit. We saw certain teams playing a lot of rugby within very short spaces of time. We saw some teams having to field pretty weak sides because of either having to rotate players or because of COVID issues and stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't a Currie Cup which might have had the most sort of integrity, but at the end of the day, it is exactly what we sort of come to expect playing rugby within these times. Just like, the fact that the Springboks have to go overseas with a very big squad and then hope that nobody really gets injured because, players joining a squad and stuff like that is quite difficult. We have to sort of adapt. And at the end of the day, we did get a Currie Cup season underway. The best team did win on the day. And there were some very exciting players that came through. And I think that's probably the most exciting part of the entire Currie Cup, the fact that we did start to see the next generation. Whether the Currie Cup should be the competition where we start seeing the next generation, that's something that's up for debate. That's something that Jake White has been quite critical of, saying that he wants to start raising the average age of players. He says it's fantastic the youngsters are coming through, but he says at the end of the day, World Cups and international rugby and international tournaments are won by players who are playing at a higher playing age. You're not going to take a team of 22 and 23-year-olds and go and win the Heineken Cup. You've got to be having these sort of player ages being on the other side of 25, really, where players start to mature and stuff like that. And that's not to say that, you can't play youngsters. But I think because of the brain drain, we forced our youngsters through far, far sooner into big roles than we probably should have. Somebody like Vincent Jatuka at the Lions is a senior player. And he's 22 years old, and he sort of runs onto the park with all the sort of hopes and dreams of Lions fans on the likes of Vincent Jatuka, 22, Frankie Horn, 22, Jordan Henderson, 20 years old. These players should be, in a team of experience where they can sort of grow into the natural game and start sort of stamping their authority without thinking that they have to try and carry a team at that young age. So that is probably one of the more sort of things that got wrong with the Currie Cup at the moment. And hopefully, whatever is going to happen in the past, we just want to try and make sure that we've got junior competitions where these young players can come through and that we're then phasing them in correctly so that we can sort of nurture these careers as opposed to maybe sometimes rushing players through and injuries happen. But in terms of our team of the tournament, quite a difficult one to pick because I think there were certain positions which, a lot of players were playing pretty well. For example, we had 3 hookers across the entire Currie Cup who scored 7 tries. It was a Currie Cup of Moors and a Currie Cup of pretty poor defending, if we're going to be very honest. It is very much Bulls dominated, as you'd imagine. They were the best side throughout the tournament, and that final performance just sort of showed exactly what they're all about. Even that first 20 minutes against the Western Province, where they pretty much wrapped up the semi-final, they were a class outfit. And I don't think it's a mistake that Jake White is bringing so many older and experienced players back to the union, or not even back to the union, but to the union, and then phasing some youngsters in, and he's getting that balance perfect in terms of experience and youth. So if we're looking at the front row, we're going to start with the loose hair, which is, and we've gone with Gerard Steenekamp. I mean, very big shout out to somebody like Simphiwe Mantanzima, which just shows the sort of depth that the Bulls had, because I think Mantanzima and Jacques Van Rooyen are both quite sort of close to even being considered, because the Bulls just utilized their 23 so well. But we've gone with Gerard Steenekamp, and he's partnered him with Morne Smith on the other side, the 2 starting Bulls props, who I think sort of started coming into their own in the Currie Cup. I think that they've had moments in the previous sort of Super Rugby Unlocked Rainbow Cup, but I think that now they're sort of seeing them very, very settled, which kind of happens after a year of playing rugby. In between them, I've gone with Simon Vestrot from the Pumas. He scored 7 tries. He was absolutely massive for the Pumas, who I think would have been very well-deserved semi-finalist had the Western Province not sort of had that game against the Sharks, which managed to get them into the semi-finals. But I mean, notable appearances from the likes of Kieran van Vuuren, who also scored 7 tries. JJ Kotze scored 7 tries through all the sort of different rolling Moors. Bulls, Skalky Rasmus, Jan-Hendrik West sort of changed quite a lot of the time. So I think that I think Simon Vestrot was the standout hooker throughout the entire tournament. Despite his sort of age, it just sort of shows you what sort of experience does. And the important thing is, as a hooker, if you're scoring 7 more tries, it means that those are at least 7 clutch lineouts in high pressure situations on the 5 meter where you are finding your jumper. And that's very important. We saw Malcolm Marx doing that on Sunday, the fact that he hit his jumper every single time. And it sounds strange, but the more that the hooker's sort of role changes in terms of being an auxiliary fetcher, in terms of being good on the loose, the more that sometimes those sort of the basics of being able to feed into the line correctly, that sometimes starts to fall away. So it's good to see that there are more tries, and we're seeing hookers who have got some very good set piece abilities. Going to the locks, it would have been very easy to go with a 4-5 Bulls combination. I have gone with the Roots at number 4, though. I just thought that the improvement he showed throughout the Currie Cup, he looks a really, really good player, and a player who's now ready to play at this sort of level of consistency. He's always been a big unit. He's always had the size. I mean, he's an absolute giant of the man. But the problem is he hasn't always had the conditioning to be able to sort of translate that to good performances on the field. And I thought this Currie Cup, for the first time, he really has started to do that. He looks a lot fitter. He's lasting much longer into the game. He's topping the carries stats on most games for the Sharks. He's become their sort of they're one of their main sort of ball carrying options, and I thought that he's had a pretty storming Currie Cup. And I partnered him with Ruan Nokia. I mean, what more can we say about the likes of Ruan Nokia? I think if we look at the tackles, he made 104 tackles throughout the entire Currie Cup, 10.4 tackles per game. There's pretty much nobody in the top sort of 15 top tacklers that have averaged more tackles per game than Ruan Nokia. So he really is. I think it's a matter of time until he does get that call up. We know that he will become a Springbok one day. I think that him and Sam Murat, if he comes back very well, could be an ideal Springbok pairing in about 5 or 6 years' time. Nicholas Jansen van Rensburg just been ruled out of the Springbok tour. If he's not fit for the end of their tour, we very might see Ruan Nokia being sort of given a call up and being put into the setup. I think a lot of people are calling for him to be there ahead of somebody like maybe Marvin Uri. If we look at the loose cheer, number 6, Gideon van der Merwe, well, he topped the tackle stats for the most tackles made across the competition with 119, averaging 9.92 per game. He also had 15 turnovers across the entire tournament, 1.25 every game. How he hasn't been announced as a loan signing from one of the other unions yet, I'm not entirely sure, because he's just, even during the Currie Cup last season, the Super Rugby Unlocked, he's been sensational. He's really, really playing some fantastic rugby. And I think it's a matter of time before he does make that move to a bigger union. Number 7, I've cheated a little bit. I've gone with Albert Lowe. He didn't really play number 7 much the entire tournament. We did see him playing a lot at 8th man with Marcel Coetzee shifting to the flank and Arno Botha as sort of the usual loose trio. But we had to put him at 7 because we all know he's number 8. But Albert Lowe, we had a storming Currie Cup season last year and Super Rugby Unlocked. Got his injuries, sort of fell to the side. We sort of almost started to forget a little bit about him, and then had a phenomenal man of the match performance in the Currie Cup final to really remind everyone of just how good he really is. And I think that we could see, when you think of the loose forwards you've got coming through, in the likes of Pepsi Buthelezi, Evan Ruiz, Vincent Tutuka, as well as an Albert Lowe. I think we're in very safe hands in terms of loose forwards for the future. For the number 8, it has to be Evan Ruiz, the top try scorer of the competition with 8 tries, 0.8 tries he made. I think he also topped the defenders beaten with 52, averaging 5.2 defenders beaten every single game. He made 118 carries throughout the Currie Cup, averaging 11.8 a game, and he made 787 meters gained, averaging 78 meters gained for an 8th man. It's pretty phenomenal. I think it also speaks to the defensive fragilities of the entire Currie Cup setup in terms of all the teams. But he had an absolutely storming Currie Cup, was probably the standout player of the Currie Cup, and has just now penned a 4-year deal with the Western Province and the Stormers, which is a massive boost for them. Watch out for the URC, because we want to see these players being tested against some of the best in the world. We want to see him up against a Hamish Watson. We want to see him, hitting some of the bigger sort of international players. Can he still have that sort of effect? I think he can, but we can't wait to sort of see what happens there. For the number 9, I thought Ruan Pienaar was outstanding for the Cheetahs. Really, really was good. But I have gone with Zach Burger. I think that we saw a level of maturity from Zach Burger this season that is very, very exciting. For somebody who's still quite young, he's 22 years old. We are seeing a player who looks ready for this sort of level. He ended up scoring 5 tries across the tournament. He also had 10 try assists, which obviously happens quite often as a scrum half. But I just think that he's someone who he's got it all already. I think he's going to go under the radar. We've sort of been so caught up with the Grant Williams, the Jaden Hendrickses, the Sane Nahumbas, that I think Zach Burger's made that switch from the Greek Wars, looks very at home in that Bulls jersey. And I do think that he's going to push Ambrose Pierre to be that Bulls number one. And I think he's at this stage very much ahead of the race. For number 10, it is Johan Goosen. I thought, we've all seen the form he is in. But a very, very honorable mention to George White, who actually ended up as the highest point scorer in the tournament, with 165 points, averaging 13.75 points per game. Johan Goosen, though, is, I think if we're looking at try assist, the way he was playing, the way he was operating that Bulls backline, especially towards the last stage of the competition. I think early stage we saw some very exciting moments, but also what comes with being quite a mercurial player is that there are some errors, and we did see a couple of times kicking too deep and too far and stuff like that. But he started the longer he played, the more he sort of cut those sort of errors out of his game and started putting in that sort of complete performance. I think he will be a very important addition to the Bulls. To the Springbok setup in the future. He did score 101 points throughout the Currie Cup with 12.63 per game. Tim Swiel, Eddie Fischer, the only other two players apart from George Whitehead who were ahead of him. So a very good campaign for him, and very much sort of put himself back on Springbok radar territory. But I also think that the important thing is he stayed fit so far, and whether he'll be able to stay fit for the URC, that'll sort of depend on where his sort of Springbok future does lie. The wings were pretty. I think number 11 we all know it has to be Edwin Cater. We're looking at someone who just scored tries for fun. 7 tries, continues to be able to someone who can just sort of score, make anything out of nothing. Really, he's a fantastic signing for the Sharks. How are they going to balance him once they get all their outside backs? It's going to be a big juggling act. But he was part of the reason that the Griquas managed to make that semi-final, and they managed to sort of get so far. He averaged 0.58 tries per game. I think he made the most meters with 850 meters gained throughout the tournament, 70.83 per game. And the other one I've got with Thakir Abrahams, who, he beat a lot of defenders. He made a lot of carries, scored some tries. It was between him and Raz Bakwana, and I think that what sort of put me ahead with Thakir Abrahams, I think that he was probably more, I wouldn't say more important to the Sharks than Raz Bakwana was to the Lions, but I think he was sort of more pivotal in terms of getting them to semi-finals and scored some very important tries at some very important moments. But it really was a toss-up between him and Rabs, who I think we really started to see what the type of player that the Lions signed from the Cheetahs. He ended up with 6 tries. Thakir Abrahams actually didn't score as many. He got 5, but with 1 try each, I thought, it literally was a flip of the coin. That was probably the hardest decision to make. The 2 centers, Cornel Hendricks at inside center. I think he was like Super Rugby Unlocked inside center of the tournament. I think he was like Currie Cup inside center of the tournament, and I'm pretty sure he was a Rainbow Cup center of the tournament. He is just playing unbelievably good rugby, is Cornel Hendricks. Scored 5 tries, and what sort of shows the class of him and the caliber is that as soon as Harold Forster came in, he did shift to the wing a couple of times, looked phenomenal on the wing, back to the inside centre, still looks phenomenal at the inside centre. He's just a very, very good rugby player at the end of the day, and it's good to see him playing back at his best. Number 13, I've gone with Werner Cox, somebody I've been waiting to see at 13 for a long time. You've been following the channel, we've been calling to see him at 13, and he looks so at home there. Because you can start to, it's funny that you've got somebody like a Werner Koch who 13 really allows him to exploit his defensive strength, and I think that we saw that against British and Irish Lions, that was part of the Currie Cup, but that was sort of a precedent to what we then saw during the Currie Cup of somebody who is very, very aggressive defensively and got a very high work rate, and he just played very, very well. And I think that I think Lionel Mapu deserves an honourable shout out because he came into the Bulls and he's playing some tremendous rugby. He's got fantastic hands, very good vision. I think if one to see that Similani managed to play more games at outside centre, he probably would have been in the conversation. He always is, but had to play a couple of games with full back because of the lack of depth in the line setup. And then finally at full back, was close to being Sergio Peterson. I thought that's someone who I was very impressed with his transition to fullback playing. Has been more of a wing over the last few years, but then has looked really comfortable at fullback in the Currie Cup. But I've gone with Clayton Blommetjies, and I think it's just one of those things. You look at the stats between them, and Clayton Blommetjies actually had I thought he actually had a very good Currie Cup. He beat 25 defenders, an average of 2.78 per game. He had 94 carries. He gained 655 meters every game. Topped the tackle stats for the offloads. I think try assists, he came second with 8 try assists throughout the tournament. So I just thought he had a very, very good Currie Cup. And he's also somebody who I think that, there are unions out there that could make use of him for the URC. When Clayton Blommetjies is playing at his best, he's one of the best counter-attacking fullbacks in the country. We showed that a few times during the Currie Cup, and I was very impressed with his performances. But that is how our Currie Cup team looks. So as you can see, a lot of Bulls players in there, one Pumas player, two Griquas players, just the one Western Province player, one Cheetahs player, no Lions players. I mean, I don't think they deserve any Lions players. I mean, they didn't play well enough. But yeah, what do you think? Which change would you make? Any issues with the team deck there? I think there were a couple of players who were unlucky, but at the end of the day, we can only select 15. So that's the 15 we've gone with. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do smash like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Steven. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.